beading, I was always interested in learning. Like I said earlier, it was something, a part of my home, a part of my community, and I was always fascinated with the beauty of beadwork. So, life happened and, I went off on different career paths and, turning 50 was a time for me that I really reflected. And I thought, I think it's time now. I took a leap in faith. I left what I was doing for my day job, and I took that leap in faith. And after getting very comfortable with my beadwork, and I focused on that. I took time to learn. I took a workshop with Donna Glover because I learned to sew at a young age. It came easier than for most people because I was able to sew. But in her workshop, she taught a one needle beading technique, and she taught us how to make a pair of moccasins. And from that class, I fell in love with the art form. It connected me with my culture, and I went full swing. I started visiting museum collections. I started to learn from those pieces. I started collecting my own. I started collecting pieces from late 1800s, 1920s, or late 1800s, early 1900s, and those were my learning pieces. Working in museums, teaching classes, and seeing all the artifacts. And really, one special event moment for me was to find my great grandmother's work in the Manitoba Museum, which we knew was there for many years. My mother talked about it, and unfortunately, she never did see those pieces. So when I started teaching, I inquired, and what I had heard was from my mother that there was a pair of moccasins, my great grandmother's moccasins. And little did I know that when the Manitoba Museum did the research, I believe it was 9 items that they found of hers. They had photos of her, and it was just really amazing to find her work. It was really touching. And one of my goals is to replicate one of her pieces. When I first started beading, I was doing a lot of contemporary work, beading patterns, and finding her work and seeing the old style traditions it inspired me to keep those traditions going. And that changed everything for me, finding her work and having the opportunity to look at many of the artifacts. I realized the importance of keeping the old style traditional floral beadwork and the old style traditions alive. That's important for me to learn. And, I'm hoping to, take the next year, 2 years to learn some of those pieces. Having that museum presence and the collections available is really important. I find that having access to those artifacts, there are learning pieces, there are teachers today, and I think that's really important that the route museums are going now is making the artifacts in the collections more accessible, because it's really important to us artists. We haven't, if we haven't been able to collect our own grandmother's work, our own mother's work, and so on in our family history, this way we're able to actually go in and view and study those pieces. When you look at a piece and sit with the piece, whether it's your first or your 5th time looking at a piece, you always see something different. And if you're actually looking at a piece that's unassembled and you look in behind the work, that's where you really learn from, as to how they assembled, how they stitched. So I'm grateful for those artifacts because it's really important. They're really important. There are teachers today. With any pieces I make, it's not just something that I could sit down and say, okay, I'm making this today. And the reason I say that is because I have to have a vision of what I'm going to be doing. Like, I know what I'm making. If I'm making a pair of moccasins, if I'm making a pair of gauntlets. But when it comes to the beadwork, it takes time. And for myself, as well as other artists, you have to have that vision of what you're going to bead. So, that could come from, other beadwork artists, inspiration from them. That could be from the museum collections, from the collections that I have. It could be just from inspiration from the land. When you think about it, back in the day, there was no internet. There was no places to go for inspiration other than the land, the beauty of the colors, of natural beauty and everything. So once I have that vision, and sometimes this may sound strange, but sometimes it comes to me in a dream, because I'm always thinking of color choices, I'm thinking of patterns, I'm always kind of like 2-3 projects ahead of myself. So once I have that vision, it's a matter of putting that down on paper, and then selecting the beadwork colors, selecting what type of hide you're using, what type of fur, if you're using fur. So you all want that to really complement each other. I'll draw out my pattern on the size of the, like this is the upper gauntlet part. I draw it on the pattern size because I want my beadwork to be centered. A lot of times what I do is I drew the simple pattern, I always add to it and change it as I go along. And I've heard this saying many times actually, and I hear this quite a bit when I've met with the various elders, is that why they beaded floral beadwork on winter wears like mittens, gauntlets, moccasins is because we had harsh, long, cold winters. So to be able to look at bright floral patterns, beadwork, it reminded you of the summer days ahead, because our winters up in northern Manitoba, up in the north in general, are very long, right? Taking that time to bead and learning, I just went with it. It was something I've done daily, and it connected me more to my culture, and it made me very proud that I'm doing something. I'm doing beadwork that my ancestors practiced. It's something I practice. It doesn't belong to me. I always say in my classes that it's something I practice. I have a lot of respect and responsibility for the art form because it represents my background, my family, my ancestors, and when I take the time to bead, when I do teach classes, I treat it in the most respectful way because that's how much it means to me.